Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this fireside chat on innovation and financing the e-mobility and autonomous vehicle ecosystem. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation with Sophie Besitka, and I know we're standing in between you and your lunch, but I hope the topic of innovation startups is capturing enough that you will stay with us for the next 20 minutes. My name is Keller. I lead regional strategy and partnerships for the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is the international organization for public-private collaboration. You will mostly know us from our annual meeting in Davos, but we do work year-round with communities, industry communities, communities of purpose, to provide a platform for leaders from the private sector, from business, public sector leaders, and civil society to come together and think through and tackle the big challenges that not one group can solve for by themselves. And the topic of the future of mobility is a great example for how we do that. So we address this topic through an industry community focused on automotive and new mobility. And that community really focuses on three dimensions: resilient and sustainable auto value chains, smart mobility integration and ecosystems, and lastly, moving emerging markets. So I encourage you, if you're active in this space and you want to become part of these conversations, to reach out to us or find me after the panel. Now, moving into the innovation aspect. Sophie, you're an entrepreneur yourself. You also work with the Qatar Development Bank on their incubator program. Give us a bit of a flavor of what that incubator program is all about and what you do there.
Thanks, Kai. Well, first of all, I know that Kai already said it, everybody's on to lunch, so thanks for everybody who decided to sit and listen. So at the Qatar Business Incubation Center, owned by and founded by the Qatar Development Bank, we have 7 incubators and accelerators. These verticals, one of them, very fresh and new last year, is the mobility vertical. And what we do is we're at pre-seed. We invest in startups at the early stage, in kind and cash. And we have partners. And what's very unique right now is we've started this partnership, first of its kind in the country, with a private entity, that is Q Auto, Volkswagen, and Audi. So this partnership is for us to foster innovation in the mobility space. So that's essentially how it looks like. We're for pre-seed startups and early stage entrepreneurs.
Excellent. Now, for those who are not from the region and traveled from different parts of the world, give us a bit of a flavor for what the startup ecosystem here in Qatar looks like and how it might be different from other parts of the world.
I wouldn't exactly be able to point out how it's different from elsewhere, but over here there's a lot of support, particularly from the Gov. For example, in our mandate as Qatar Business Incubation Center, we provide incubation services wherein we deliver programs not just to those that we invest in, but also to the entire ecosystem. So for example, this May 15, 16, and 17 weekend, we're running our annual hackathon, where everybody is welcome for, if your idea is accepted, of course, for a weekend of free learning, mentorship, and then, of course, a chance to win if you're selected, 25,000 riyals to further validate your idea. And then that's automatic acceptance into our Lean Startup program that happens also every year, when you're accepted, that's a 250,000 riyals investment.
Gotcha. And can you speak a bit more about the mobility project that you just mentioned and what you're doing there exactly?
Absolutely. So what we're doing there is a partnership with Q Auto for them, and I would like to commend and perhaps give a shout out to Mr. Ahmed Sharifi, the managing director of Q Auto. For them, Q Auto's perspective is we have to stay not just survive, but also thrive in the ecosystem. So for us, internally, there's R&D and innovation departments, but also looking externally by supporting startups and then bringing them into the challenges that we face will help keep them relevant, but also not just to cut costs, but also to find new revenue channels for them.
Got you. And as you work with these startups, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing, and maybe also some of the challenges?
Challenges of the startups. So, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Or in particular in collaboration with the other partners you have in the program.
Well, when the startups come in, usually, so our first touch point at the idea stage is the hackathon. When they come in, we open up the challenges that we have. So for example, this year, for the mobility vertical, our challenges are in V2V, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, mobility as a service, electrification, and in general, the digitization of mobility. So when these startups come in with their ideas over the weekend, they try to address these challenges and come up with a solution that then our jury decides to select whoever, has addressed the challenge best, and then gives this pre-investment award of 25K. And from then on, it goes down to the Lean Startup program, which is further investment then. I'm not sure I answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And you're touching about the financing, the money aspect already. Yes. And of course, that's the topic of the panel, is like, how do you finance innovation, and how do these startups get the access to capital that they need? What is the reality here in Qatar when it comes to access to financing for innovative companies?
Well, at pre-seed and seed, there's a lot of support from the ecosystem and, of course, from Qatar Development Bank. But the challenge is a bit at scale, two things, a bit at scale, and then when you're a deep tech startup, especially in mobility, when it's deep tech, it requires upfront capital. When it's, just tech-based and in the web, then you don't need a lot of capital to get started and just to roll things out for traction. Traction will happen months or years down the line for deep tech, and that requires access to capital, but there are certain institutions that support that, but it's very much open for, hopefully the world sees these innovations that are happening in Qatar and that challenge in financing. But also, I think when we were having our chat earlier, I told you about what is also very ripe here right now, that's just at the beginnings of it, is the angel investment community, and VCs just starting to come in. So we're at that peak. If it was a startup, then we're on our way to finding product market fit.
Got you. And yeah, we spoke about briefly before the panel about the immaturity of the VC presence in the ecosystem. Do you see that changing? And for the VCs coming in, is there a broad enough range of investment opportunities?
First question, I see that happening, absolutely. With the Web Summit being hosted in Qatar for the next 5 years, the first one has been tremendously successful. Great exposure for our entrepreneurs here, and great exposure for the entrepreneurs who came in and had a taste of what it's like to be in Qatar. So VCs also are about to, there are a lot of opportunities for VCs to get started here, and the government is beautifully doing its job to foster and support and reward that.
Who are these VCs from the region, or are they global VCs? What are you seeing there?
Personally, from the Web Summit, we've seen global VCs coming in. There were global VCs coming in and looking at the ecosystem and the opportunities here, because Qatar is a beautiful place to land as a startup and to explore, because we're a very close, what a lot of the difference is, and I think this is very interesting for those outside. Elsewhere in Europe, in the US, I'm not saying all, but in general, it's transactional. Business is transactional. Over here, it's relationship based, and we're over here in Qatar, we're very human. So it's not just the business that's happening. There's a lot of human elements to it. Qataris care, and expats who've been living here for a while, like myself, start to take on that culture too, and mindset and outlook, which is beautiful, because if you, as a startup founder, have this vision and then you put in the human element and relationship elements to it, then certainly you're on your way, like a step above the rest.
Yeah, so there is a very unique distinguishing attribute to the ecosystem. Yes. Here. Now, of course, getting the initial funding is great. It can be a bit of a challenge because the ecosystem is not built out enough, and then you're on to a good journey. And of course, particularly in this space, you need to get additional capital, right? You need to get to growth capital. Is that available, and if so, where's it coming from?
Well, I always say that, you know, if your startup does make sense, then investment will come to you. So it doesn't matter, and with the times we live in right now, whether you're in Qatar or elsewhere in the world, if you're doing something, the noise will organically happen and money will naturally come to you. But it could also be a challenge for some. So over here, there's Startup Qatar initiative, where we are, you know, not we, Startup Qatar is investing in startups at growth and also seed stages.
Got it. Can you speak a bit more about the entrepreneurs you're working with? Of course, the mobility vertical is only one of, I think, 7, right? Total verticals. So feel free to also expand outside of mobility, because I know that one is still growing. Who are these individuals? What's their story? Are they local? Are they coming from other parts of the world?
We're very inclusive. What we want is to foster growth, build a launch pad to support entrepreneurs from Qatar to go regional and then eventually to grow globally. So it's a healthy mix of local Qatari entrepreneurs and expatriates who have been here, and also those who are moving to the country specifically to have their startup fostered within the incubator.
Okay, so we have a mix of locals and global talent, and then what's the vision from the incubator, from QDB? Like, are we developing solutions for the country, for the region, or are we having a global ambition?
There's certainly a global ambition, and we're starting home. So right now, at the Qatar Business Incubation Center in particular, we only take in startups who are, or entrepreneurs who are residents of the country. But investment from Startup Qatar, which is, you know, is different. That could be global. But us in the incubation center is for locals and for expatriates who are here.
Got it. So when we go back to the mobility space, of course, a lot of ideas require a functioning ecosystem, right? And we heard a lot about that already. And that's oftentimes quite capital intense. And do you have a sense on whether that financing, those financing mechanisms are there already to build out that infrastructure so that then startups with their unique ideas and solutions can plug into that ecosystem?
I'm pretty sure there would be, so your questions are there, is the ecosystem ready to finance these and support the development? It's not in our, you know, say department, but there is the QRDI, of course, and then the Ministry of Transport, and I'm pretty sure everybody, the top players in the country, gov and private, would be happy to come together and, you know, support should there be an entity happening here that is, you know, with at least the signals for global innovation in the, not just the mobility space, of course.
Gotcha. That was a great interaction to get us started. I want to give the audience also an opportunity to chime in. Maybe there's some innovators here among us who have an interest in your program. Maybe some general questions. Are there any questions for Sophie?
If there aren't questions, Kai, and you don't mind me saying, I think this is a great opportunity for us to, because I've been highlighting Q Auto and that partnership. We have another partnership with Ooredoo, which is, if you're familiar, it's the telco over here. So with Ooredoo, we have the Digital and Beyond Incubator. And that partnership beautifully started out as a CSR initiative from Ooredoo, and now it's transformed into being a corporate innovation strategy, which is how Q Auto started a year ago. So for corps that are here and looking to innovate, that's a beautiful way to look at it. You could come and approach me and reach out to us, of course, to understand how it works.
Get you. So these initiatives are spreading, which is really good news.
Yeah.
Now, when you look forward, what are you excited about, and what are you expecting to see maybe when we come back here a year or 2 years from now?
We've only had one investment by far in the mobility incubator. So a year from now and moving forward, I'm so excited to see more startups that we've invested in, and some growth in the ones that we're investing into this year. But at the same time, to see actual on the ground changes happening. For example, one of the challenges that I'm just going to share with everybody, what we're talking about in the mobility incubator is you could not get, say, a car brand talking to another car brand to get their vehicles to talk to each other for V2V communication. A startup has a space to become that entity that would connect those giant dots as a tiny dot. So that's one of the things that I'm personally excited about.
I'm expecting you're anticipating a lot more projects to come onto the platform and become part of the incubator. Is there anything in the works already, or are you waiting for that hackathon for these ideas to develop?
We've just invested in one. The mobility incubator has just invested in one startup by far, because we're less than a year old. So this year we're looking to do more investments. So we're really, really excited for the hackathon and then the Lean Startup Program and our investments this year. We're certainly going to do more.
Excellent. So when we come back here in a year or two, hopefully we're going to be joined by some of these innovators and hear their story. Sophie, thank you very much. I think we're going to let folks get to lunch. Thank you for joining us, and I think Sophie will be around to answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah, I'll be around. Thank you. Thank you, Kai. Thanks, everybody.